Everything that is new seems scary. Familiarity is what makes things comfortable and less scary. This is true for so many things, and home birth is no different. I get messages from listeners saying they would love to have a birth at home, but their husband isn't really comfortable with it, or maybe they're scared to do it. So I want to talk to you today about whether home birth is actually scary, or if maybe you're just scared of what you don't know, and your fear is really based on what you've been told, which might not even be true. God is not the author of fear. He tells us to fear not many, many times in His Word. So let's get the information and let's move forward fearlessly today. Come on, let's dive in. Are you a Christian woman yearning for a beautiful, joyful pregnancy and birth with a focus on God, not medical tests? Are you worried the birth you want isn't possible and you're tired of being treated like an accident waiting to happen? Hey Mama, I'm Lori, host of Your Birth God's Way. I'm a certified nurse-midwife now, but I wasn't always. After working for nearly 20 years in the broken maternity system, I too was in your shoes wondering how I could have the birth I wanted and that I felt God meant for me to have. I found a secret that has actually been known since the beginning of time. God's way is the best way. Spoiler alert, God made us and our babies, and He knows us best. He designed us perfectly for pregnancy, birth, and nourishing our babies after birth, if we work with His design and not against it. In this podcast, you'll learn how to be healthy and have joy during this time of life that will be over before you know it. So if you're ready to reclaim your birth and your babies for His glory, go turn on a few episodes of Bluey for that little one on your hip so you can put the focus back on you for a few minutes with me. Real quick today, review time. My review today is from Canada. I think my last week's review was from Norway. This is so fun to see so many people listening from all around the world. Today my review is from Dana Ruth. She's from Canada. She left this back in May. She said, I always knew I wanted to home birth, but then when it came to getting pregnant shortly after moving, I didn't feel, quote, at home enough in our new home. Listening to Lori's podcast has helped me to realize that there's no place like home is truly true. I can't wait to birth at home now with the support of my husband, midwife, and doula in August. And I can't wait to hear about your birth. I wish I knew if it was Dana or Dana. I don't want to mess your name up, but please forgive me. But I can't wait to hear about your birth story once it happens. And Dana, if you're not aware, I'm sure you are if you listened last week, but I'm actually hosting a home birth prep class starting on July 11th, which is just in time for you to be ready for your birth. So go get pre-registered if you haven't already. Go to go.yourbirthgodsway.com/homebirthprep, and that goes for anybody listening. This is going to be a 4-week course in live format over Zoom, where we're going to go through everything that you need to know to get prepared for your home birth. Everything from making sure that your husband's on board, or your mom, or your mother-in-law, or whoever, that they truly understand why you're wanting this and that they can feel safe in this environment with you. Everything from that to making sure your home is prepared. We're going to talk a little bit more about that at the end, so just stay tuned, because first we just really need to dive into whether home birth is scary. I mean, should you even want to have a home birth? Is this a scary concept? Is it dangerous? Is it reckless? We need to go through that first, and then we're going to go into, I think you probably know, spoiler alert, it's not scary. But at the end, we'll talk more about what the course is going to involve so that you can get signed up and be a part of it, because I really want you to feel empowered. I want you to feel safe. I want you to feel confident that you're making a great choice. So I want to first, though, talk about, what is scary? What's scary in life? Things that are scary in life are things that you don't know what to expect. They're unfamiliar. They're uncomfortable, what have you. Think back through your years up till now. Think of your first day of kindergarten. That was scary. You were leaving your mama. You're going into a room with a bunch of kids that you don't know and a teacher you didn't know, and it was a whole lot of things that were unfamiliar. That was scary. But once you went and you got used to it and you made some friends, it wasn't so scary anymore, right? What about your first date? Some guy you didn't even know, or some girl you didn't even know, if it's a dad listening. You didn't know him. You didn't know if you were going to like him. You didn't know if it was going to be awkward. It was scary. But it's not so scary on the second or third date. You're starting to get to know him, right? What about the first time you ever drove a car alone? That's scary. You kind of know what to do, but you don't have anybody to lean on anymore. You don't have anybody to ask questions to anymore. It's scary. But now I would bet that you can drive from the grocery store to your home, to church, to wherever else, and you probably never even think twice about it. You probably sometimes get home and wonder, how did I even get here? It's so second nature, and it's far from scary anymore. First, anything is scary. It's just the nature of it. It's the unfamiliarity. Even scary movies. Scary movies are only scary the first time you see them because you don't know what to expect. I mean, yeah, they might mess with you a little bit the second or third time, but you know what's coming. You know where the scary things are. You know where the monsters are hiding, or the ghosts, or the scary people, or whatever. You know what to expect, so it's not quite as scary the second, third, fourth time. You know what to expect. It's now familiar. That familiarity is how you get rid of the fear. So let's think about this. Is birth itself scary? Yeah, it can seem that way. Especially if you've never experienced it, if you've never seen it, never seen somebody else give birth, it can seem scary. If all you've ever seen is what happens on TV shows, it can seem scary. But it can seem that way when you're around people or you're learning from people who have never seen it or experienced it in its natural state. Guess who's never, or maybe almost never, experienced an undisturbed birth that was left alone to progress naturally? Nearly everyone who is forming your opinions of birth, nearly none of those, maybe completely none of those, have ever truly experienced an undisturbed birth. OBs, obstetricians, when they graduate, they might graduate and practice their entire careers and never see an actual undisturbed birth and never know what it actually looks like. You know, they may say they've seen a natural birth in a hospital, but what they mean is a birth that didn't have any drugs involved. It's not an undisturbed birth by any stretch. They are basing their views on what they have seen of a hospital birth, which is very disturbed. All kinds of things are being done to that birth that wouldn't be done normally if it was just left alone. And unless they take it upon themselves to seek out that experience, to be able to see what an undisturbed birth looks like in its natural state, they'll likely never see it in their entire career. Between that, these are the people we look to as experts in birth who have never usually even seen an undisturbed birth. Between that and Hollywood, these are the two main forces that have formed your opinion of birth, whether you realize it or not. Hollywood has formed a lot of your opinion, and their basis is much the same as the OBs, that birth is scary and it's sudden and it's chaotic and you don't know when it's coming and don't know what's going to happen. You know, it's going to happen in the middle of the grocery store or whatever. Your water's going to break and the baby's going to come right now. Except for that's really not what birth usually looks like. Like it or not, you have been programmed to believe that birth is scary. Most of you listening were brought up to know what you've heard of birth, not what you've seen of it. Does that make sense? That didn't sound like it makes sense. But what I mean is you've been brought up to form opinions of birth based on what other people think or what other people experience, not what you've experienced yourself or what you've seen for yourself. It's just the way our culture is now. We haven't seen our moms have 8 more babies after we're born. We haven't been there to help our older sisters have their babies when we're teenagers. That used to be normal because we had such big families that if you're the baby, by the time you're growing up, your older brothers and sisters, they're having families of their own and you're seeing their births. You're seeing your mom have more babies. This used to be normal and it's just not now. So our picture of what birth is has become kind of almost an imagination thing because we don't actually see it. We only know the little bits and pieces we've heard. And it can get pretty scary. We haven't been called to our neighbor's house to help when their labor happens. That's something else that used to always happen. It was kind of a community thing when somebody was having their baby. The women all came. And the younger girls would come with them and they would start to see what birth was like from very young ages. They would participate and they would help these women. That was the picture of birth. That was normal. And birth wasn't scary then. Sometimes things didn't go as planned, of course. So there's always a little bit of worry that something could happen to you, but it wasn't pervasive. The fear of birth wasn't pervasive because they knew that usually those things that could happen, they usually didn't. And everybody knew that. Usually mom and baby were fine. You just wait and you watch and things happen and they progress in God's time, not in ours. But we are so far away from that picture that it's easy to see why home birth seems scary. Most people just haven't seen it and haven't experienced it. And as a result, most people march into a place that is usually seen as equally scary, the hospital. Most people march into these equally scary places to have their babies, and they think that is normal. Hospitals are the backdrop behind injuries and bad sicknesses. People worry they'll go in and won't come back out in those situations. They want to get better, but they're afraid that they can't be. Lots of people die in hospitals because that's the nature of the hospital. Lots of people are saved as well, but not all. So why do we march into these scary places and think that that somehow is less scary than being in the familiarity and the comfort of your home? A hospital is scary. It's life hanging in the balance. It's scary if you are sure of your salvation. It's scary if you're not sure of your salvation, because no one has experienced death until they experience death. So the whole thing is scary, and there's no way really to make it unscary. But birth is not like that. I need you to hear this. Birth is not like that. You can know what to expect, and you can know how to labor functionally in a place that is familiar, in a way that is not scary, in a way that is not dangerous, that is not reckless, or any of those other words that they like to use to label home birth. Labor is not the problem. Birth is not the problem. So how has the culture convinced us that the hospital is somehow less scary than giving birth at home? Well, I want to paint you a picture today. I want to give you the reality of what home birth is. And then next week, I'm going to give you the contrast, okay? This picture is based on you knowing you best. This is not based on you handing over your agency to a stranger to decide what's reality for you, or for them to decide what's best for you. This is a little story to show you what home birth can be and usually is. So the day comes when your contractions get going. Okay? They're going, they're starting, they're picking up. They're getting a little stronger, and you're wondering, is this the time? Is this it? Now in the world, they're going to tell you to run to the hospital to get checked. But remember, the picture I'm going to paint for you is based on you knowing you. This picture is based on you being your own expert in your own body. So you don't go grab the bag and take off to the hospital and get checked, because you plan to stay home. So, you walk around a little. Hopefully you try to keep doing whatever it was you were already planning on doing. Maybe you're cooking dinner. Maybe you're watching a movie. Maybe even sleeping if it's nighttime. You just ignore it as best you can for a while, for as long as you can. You snuggle up with your babies if you already have some. Maybe you have a snack or even a meal. Maybe you text your midwife to give her a heads up. But, no big deal if you do or you don't at this point. It's pretty early. With time, things start to get more regular. And they get more regular. And they get more regular. And you're either waking up with every contraction, or you're having to stop talking to others if it's during the day and you're up trying to do things. Maybe in between when these contractions come, you're having to, kind of stop and check out when they come. You're having to really focus. Maybe you keep on with your activities, or maybe you find yourself pulling away to be in a dark room that's nice and quiet and peaceful. You may find yourself swaying or humming or wanting to lay down. But whatever it is you find yourself wanting to do, you do it. Because you trust God and you trust His wisdom in your body. And you know that all of these things are going to work together to bring your baby to your arms. You start to perceive that the contractions are opening your cervix, and you start to perceive that your baby's moving down some, and he's getting closer to meeting you. You decide that it's probably time to go ahead and have your husband call your midwife, and she starts to make her way to your home. Beyond that, there's really very little commotion, very little anything besides waiting and resting and swaying and working with your body. Your husband may be filling a birth tub, if that's something you've chosen to have in your birth, or you may be getting into the shower to have that soothing water running down your back, or maybe you're sinking down into your bathtub to relax in between the mounting rushes of pressure. Moments melt into hours, and you focus more and more inward with every rush, knowing that you're one step closer to meeting this little one that you've been growing and longing to touch. No one's coming blasting into your room to disturb you. No one is putting any monitors or strapping anything on your belly. No one is forcing you into any uncomfortable positions. No one is sticking any needles in your arm. No machines are dinging or beeping or strangers accidentally walking in the wrong room. None of these things are happening in your home environment because it's your home and it's controlled and it's safe. Your midwife quietly arrives and comes to check on you and your baby in between contractions. Maybe she checks your cervix if you want her to, but maybe she doesn't. A skilled midwife can know very well how far along you are in your labor without ever putting fingers in your body. You get to choose if you want her to do it or not. She briefly listens to the baby's heart rate and takes your blood pressure, but then she fades into the background to get her things ready as she likes them to be. She has a lot of equipment available, but she has plans to use none of it. She is trained and skilled to stabilize mom or baby if she needs to. But she really can't, if she really thinks back, she tries to remember how long it's been since the last time she used it. She can't really remember. She's worked on training and she's gone through some drills to keep the skills fresh, but she can't remember when she actually had to use these skills. As she finishes the last of her setup, she perceives some guttural moaning coming from the direction of mom. She knows it's getting closer. She calls her assistant to come if she's not already there, and she moves to be with mom. But she just sits peacefully. She sits next to her, maybe in the corner, maybe right behind her. Depends on what mom wants. But she folds her hands and she waits, checking the baby's heart rate periodically. But beyond that, she's watching mom and perceiving her well-being constantly, silently. The moaning intensifies, and within an hour or so, the baby has arrived. The midwife and the assistant make notes and write observations as needed, but baby is never separated from mom, not even for a moment. Baby latches on, and the first feed happens without much thought at all. The placenta emerges when it's ready, just as the baby did. After an hour or two, the midwife starts to quietly pack up her things and make her way back home while you curl up in bed with your sweet baby who is right where he wants to be, where he's always been, with his mama. You start to wonder if he even knows how to cry because he's been so peaceful from the moment he was born. This is home birth. This is peace. This is God's blessing making its way to you in the home God blessed you with under the care of your husband and your midwives, if you chose to have them. This is safety. This is security. This is normal. Home birth is controlled. It is calm. It is not chaotic or dangerous or reckless. Period. It is prepared and it is ready for what could come, knowing that it probably will not. Home birth is beautiful. In the home birth prep course I'll be teaching starting in July, I will go into how to make sure that it is controlled and safe and not reckless or dangerous. You're going to get step-by-step guidance on what to have and who to have to make sure your birth is well planned and peaceful. You'll learn what supplies you'll need for before, during, and after birth, where to get those supplies, how to prepare for a water birth if that's what you want, how to prepare to transfer should that become necessary, how to make sure you're on the same page as your husband and family, and so much more. This is going to be a very practical course that's going to give you actionable steps to take so you're ready to go when your baby's birthday comes. Whatever birthday that God has chosen, not the induction date or the hecticness of the hospital. Pre-registration is open right now, and I really, really want you there. You'll want to pre-register because you're going to be the first to know when the doors open. Plus, you're going to get an exclusive discount and an opportunity to bundle this course with the online Christian childbirth education course, which prepares you for pregnancy, labor, and birth themselves. So the home birth prep course is just looking at preparing your home, preparing for all the things that are involved in a home birth, because it seems that I have a lot of people tell me they just don't know what they need. They don't know what it's going to look like. They don't know how to, maybe if they want to have a water birth, how to protect their home from damage. They don't know where to get supplies, all these kind of things that are the unknowns that make home birth scary. These are the things that we tackle in the home birth prep course. The childbirth education course is preparing the mental side of labor, pregnancy, birth, nutrition, pushing, positioning, all the other things that you need to know, but it's not part of just preparing your home. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, if you're like, I don't get the difference, just shoot me an email. I'll try to help you understand it, okay? But I want you to go get signed up now. There's no obligation to pre-register, so if you're thinking about it at all, now is the time to get your name on the list so you won't miss out when doors open. Head to go.yourbirthgodsway.com/homebirthprep. Next week, to compare and contrast, I'm going to walk you through what birth looks like in a hospital. Many of you have seen neither. I've seen both. Okay, remember that. All the things that I talk about that the hospital was, or the hospital is, I was that. That's why I know it so well. I was a part of the problem. And so I want you to see what it looks like to have a birth in a hospital. You've now seen a quick little snapshot of what home birth looks like. So now I want you to see a snapshot of what hospital birth looks like so that you can decide which version that you prefer. Today's walkthrough is a typical home birth. It's what all women deserve and most women can have. Home is where birth has happened for all but maybe the last 100 or so years. It is normal to want to be at home. It is where labor is truly undisturbed and where it is truly natural. But it is not what most women in our country choose. Most choose the hospital for whatever reason. So I want to give you the reality of a typical hospital birth as well. So tune in next Tuesday and tell your friends about these episodes as well, even if they're not Christians, because these principles are true and they are strong whether you're a Christian or not. I look forward to seeing you right back here next week. Real quick, if today's episode blessed you in any way, would you head over to Apple Podcasts and leave me a quick 5-star written review? It'll take you less than a minute, but it's the best thank you you can give me. And it will help my show to reach more mamas just like you so we can all find God's best for our families. I'll see you right back here in a few days.